I think Friday of last week. And quite quickly, once I started to have a look at the UK Vaccine Council, I saw some familiar names on there. So we're going to go through the list of names. But just to give you an idea, there's 34 members, and they have all received funding from the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, bar two. And those people essentially are part of the Defence and Science Technology Lab, which is like the America's DARPA institutes, and they report directly to Sir Patrick Vallance. So let me just explain then. Bill Gates and GlaxoSmithKline have a business relationship worth about £1 billion. That's really important to understand. Just to show you how close their relationship is, they've worked on projects in India where they're actually under investigation for harming people with the vaccine program that they did there. And the Emma Walmsley, who is the CEO of GlaxoSmithKline, also sits on the board of Microsoft. And that's really important to note. And apparently she sits next to Bill Gates on the board. So that means something as well. Sir Patrick Vallance, who's the chief scientific advisor up until 2018, was president of research and development at GlaxoSmithKline. And then he was kind of implanted into the government as chief scientific advisor. We know that Chris Whitty is about to become on the executive board of the World Health Organization, which again is funded by Bill Gates. So you can see that GlaxoSmithKline and the Bill Gates Foundation are linked inextricably by about £1 billion worth of investment. Already, Bill Gates has the coronavirus test, the COVID-19 test, from a company called Mologic, which his foundation has started and operates and funds. That's really important. Boris Johnson visited it on the 6th of March this year, just before he became ill and disappeared from public view. And Mologic is developing the home test kit now, which obviously, as we've heard from Chris Whitty and Sir Patrick Vallance, they want the whole country to be tested. And just to give you some idea of the figures here, the test is going to be sold for around about £225 per test. Okay, so to this company and to Bill Gates, that is worth £14 billion just on the UK alone. Right? And I think that's important to understand. We're not talking about Europe, where there's 450 million people. Just imagine that, his test going out to all of those people. So the reason that you haven't got a test yet is because they're waiting for Mologic to release it, for Bill Gates to release it to everybody. And it's his company. It was funded by him. He has produced this test. Okay. And so we're going to look down the list of these people and to see the links between the Bill Gates Foundation and the so-called UK Vaccine Network, which is supposed to be independent, which is supposed to be impartial, but sadly, as I have learnt, it is far from that. So the first name on the list, bear with me, and I hope you don't find this boring, but I think it is important to go through each name and to say how much they've got. Now, some of them we don't have a figure because it's not public knowledge, but we know they've received funding because that is public knowledge. And it's in, these are, this is a great deal of money we're talking about. So the first name on the list is Adrian Hill. He received 10 million. He was actually a Bill Gates dissenter to begin with. He had a project with a vaccine called R21. And he complained about Bill Gates and what have you. And then suddenly he gets 10 million. He gets £10 million for his fund. Andrew Pollard got 36.9 million. Brian Charleston, he's the director of Pirbright Institutes. They have multiple grants. They're in bed together. They have multiple fundings, hundreds of millions. The last one was about $5.5 million. Cherry Lynn Adams, BBSRC, she got 4.4 million from the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation. Charlie Weller, funded by Bill Gates. He's actually funded by Bill Gates. All his work's funded by Bill Gates. Charlotte Watts from the London School of Hygiene and Tropical Medicine. We know that Chris Whitty got 31 million, but Charlotte is obviously very special. She trumps Chris with a whopping 59 million pounds directly to her project. 59 million to her project. Chris Whitty, we know from the chief medical officer, he got 31 million. And he also is about to become on the board of the World Health Organization, which is also funded by Bill Gates. Christian Schneider from the MHRA, which is the regulator for medicines and medical devices in this country, is funded by Bill Gates. Ellen Riley from the London School of Hygiene and Tropical Medicine, she got 50 million from the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation. Fiona Tomley, she's Pirbright Institute. They have multiple funding, multiple grants. Gary Entrison, a Pirbright Institute, so again, multiple funding, multiple grants. Ian Hudson, who was the CEO of the MHRA, has then left to become Bill Gates' senior advisor for regulations to get it through the regulatory system of the MHRA. He's on the board, and he's paid directly by the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation. Jean Lang co-leads the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation Vaccine Discovery Team, and obviously that's funded by them. Jeffrey Ullman, Senior Advisor to the World Health Organization and the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation. Joanne Pryor, she's the Defence Science and Technical Lab, and she has nothing to do with Bill Gates. She's not funded by Bill Gates. She's funded by the government. It's and she does all the secret work, you know. She's but her boss, who she reports to, is Sir Patrick Vallance of GlaxoSmithKline, and who is now Chief Scientific Advisor to our government. So you can see the links here. It's just two companies, GlaxoSmithKline and the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation. Johan van Hoof received funding. John Edmonds received funding from Bill Gates. Jonathan Pierce is the Medical Research Council, multiple grants, and works with the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation on a regular basis, if you can believe that. Julian Bonagera is part of the MHRA, the regulator in this country, receives funding and grants. Manesh Kumar is funded by the foundation, the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, and is part of the World Health Organization. Massimo Pamelarini, beg your pardon, sorry about that, got a £3 million grant from the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation. Mike Francis. Now, Mike Francis was quite hard to find. His actual name is Michael Francis. And, you know, just to give you some idea, a lot of these people are really hard to find. They've not put doctor, they've not put professor, they've not put where they come from, where they work. And I think that if you want to be transparent, you would do that quite easily. Doctor or professor, and where they came from, what institute they're part of. But of course, they don't want to put that, because that would then it'd be easy to find who was funded by who. So Mike Francis, his name is Michael Francis, is the Pirbright Institute, and he gets regular funding. Miles Carroll is part of the UK government, and they consider themselves to be a partner with the Gates Foundation and received 1.1 million. Nigel Ferguson, funded by the foundation. Nick Adkins from the Department of Health and Social Care, they received 80.34 million. The Department of Health and Social Care received 80.34 million from the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation. We fund that as part of it's a government department. What on earth are they doing accepting money from a private individual? You know, surely they know that that person is buying their way in and influence. However, Paul Gosford, Public Health England, he got 1.1 million for his project. Peter Openshaw works in partnership with the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation. Simon Foster of University of Sheffield received $400,000 for his project. Stephen Inglis, National Institute of Biological Standards, which is part of the MHRA, receives regular funding from the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation. Steve Chatfield is part of a pharmaceutical company that receives funding. They work with Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation. Sue Middleton, she is the communications director at GlaxoSmithKline and receives money from them. So Sue Middleton is the communications director at GlaxoSmithKline. She's not a doctor, and she's on the vaccine network panel. So that's clearly to forward things for Glaxo and for Bill Gates, isn't it? To persuade them. She's the persuader, I think. Tarit Mukhopadhyay. Anyway, he got 100,000 to begin with, up to 1 million. Timothy Atkins, he's part of the Defence Science and Technical Lab. Again, they have nothing to do with Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, but they report to Patrick Vallance, who's the Chief Scientific Advisor. So whatever advice they give him, he's just going to say GlaxoSmithKline, because he was the President of Research and Development at GlaxoSmithKline. And Zhao Ning Zhu from Imperial College receives regular funding. So that's the list of the impartial UK vaccine network. And so just looking at the numbers that we've got already, because a lot of these is just receives funding, because we couldn't actually find out without really getting into it. A lot of that information is not public knowledge. So just on the basis of this, let me just give you some numbers. So in excess, so Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, on this panel, on this group of people, on these people, and these, just getting these people onto this panel, have spent in excess of £200 million, which is a drop in the ocean. Now, this is a box-ticking exercise. This is a smokescreen set up by the World Health Organization, by Chris Whitty, by Sir Patrick Vallance, by Bill Gates, to give some sort of oversight to the public, to make sure that we feel good about this vaccine that is just going to be horrendous. So if it's produced by GlaxoSmithKline and the Bill Gates Foundation, they're already under investigation in India, and they try to sterilise people in young women in Africa. I mean, this is all kind of well-documented sort of history. Essentially, they do more harm than good, this combination of people. Now, I think a vaccine produced by other people, a genuine vaccine, would be great, would be very useful, would help, save lives and protect people into the future. However, this isn't that. Let's just make that clear, And I'm not anti-vaccinations per se. A proper vaccine is probably worth its weight in gold, like the polio vaccine. However, this is not that. So let's just put some numbers into perspective for you. So Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation have spent in excess of 200 million. It's probably more like coming up to $1 billion, really, just on this group of people and these institutions that they work for, funding them so they can get the right decision back. And the vaccine is going to be sold by GSK at around about £477 per injection. So they will charge the NHS, the government, £477 per injection. Now, we've got 65 million people in the UK alone. So this is a pretty big number, and it's quite incredible. So 65 million people, they want everybody injected with the vaccine, and that would mean it is a whopping £31,482,000,000. I'm going to say that slowly, and I'm going to say it again. Bill Gates and GSK are looking from this country to make £31,482,000,000. Just letting that sink in, because it's taken me all weekend to get my head around that. So it's a drop in the ocean. And we're not even talking about the 450 million Europeans who they also want to inject. Bill Gates wants to inject 7.5 billion people.